Welcome to Average Joe's Gym's Home Projects, where we do projects and maintenance at home that even an average Joe can accomplish. In today's episode, we're going to regrout the tile in my master bathroom. I don't need to do all of it, but I'm going to remove some bits and pieces that have been cracked and flaking over the last couple years. All of it could be done with some basic tools and materials you can pick up at your local hardware store, online, or even at a yard sale. Let's do it. So before I headed to the hardware store, I decided I wanted to chip out some of the old grout so I could compare the color to the grout at the store and try to get something at least pretty close. Be aware as well, your old grout is going to be a little discolored from years of being washed and walked on. After a successful trip to the hardware store, I managed to pick up this grout, which is a mix-in-container grout. You just open it up, add the water, and mix it up. I also picked up a grout float, a grout removal tool, a sponge, some grout sealer, and a small bucket. As usual, Amazon affiliate links are in the description. Time to give this grout removal tool some action. It is basically a triangular blade on a handle. You put pressure on the point of the blade in the tile slot and run it back and forth. I am very lucky, and the tile joints on my bathroom floor are really narrow. The wider your joints are, the more effort it's going to take to remove the old grout. This tool could prove to be useless on a really wide grout, and another type of tool may be necessary. This one worked for me though, and I'm very happy with it. Once you've removed all the grout that you're going to replace, just run a vacuum over it. You want to get all the little bits and pieces and the dust off the floor before you start going to work with your new grout. So here's that mixing container grout that I picked up at the hardware store. Once you get the stinking lid off, you can get a look at it here. It's just pretty fine powder. It's almost like a cross between flour and cement consistency, which it is mostly cement. Here's the line on the container that you're going to fill the water up to. It's not a lot of water and you may be surprised at the beginning, but don't overfill it, because if you overfill it, there's no way of going back. I just used a regular paint stirrer for this part. Don't get too crazy at the beginning here. Just think of it kind of as a protein shake right at the initial part of your mixing. It doesn't really want to stir in at the beginning, but be patient and be gentle. Eventually it turns into this pasty grout that's going to be useful for your project. Okay, so here's your grout lines that don't have any grout in them. I just used the paint stirrer at the beginning to scoop a little grout over the tops of the lines. Once I got a little bit on there, I used the grout float to kind of just push it in. The way it works is the grout float's real soft, it's like a rubber consistency, and you just press it into the grout lines. You'll use the edge of the float just to kind of scrape off the excess over the top of the tile. This is going to be really messy, but don't worry about that. The grout that goes into the lines will harden, and the stuff on top will wipe right off. The key here with the first pass is just to make sure that you fill all the empty grout lines that you scraped out. On this other section, I decided to just go ahead and just go over the cracks too. I have this big crack that ran through the middle of my tiles, and I figured, hey, why not? We'll just fill it up and see how it goes. I thought the corner was going to be a little more tricky, but it really wasn't a big deal at all. You just kind of push it in with the edge and then wipe it clean. Alright, now for the countertop tile. I kind of just pushed it in there with that paint stirrer right there. And I dropped a bunch, as you can see there, but you can just pick it right back up. It's not a big deal. You push it in with the float. It's just like the other tiles, and it worked out nicely. So the grout container instructions said to wait about 15 to 30 minutes before you wipe down the grout with a wet sponge. I gave it the full 30 minutes just because it's been cold and I was working with cold tile. I used the bucket with water and that sponge that I bought earlier. Get the sponge wet and then wring out most of the water so it's just damp. You're going to let it dry again another 15 to 30 minutes, and then you're going to go over it with a second pass of the water and the sponge. This should remove most of the haze that's left over from the grout on top of the tile. You can choose to do it again a third time if you want, or you can just let it all dry and then give it a good mop the next day to remove any of the grout that might still be on top of the tiles. By then, the grout inside the lines should be nice and hardened and you'll be all done. So here it is, fresh grout lines where I had old chipping out grout before. Even the cracks in the tile look much better with the grout inside them. If you enjoyed this project, please check out our other projects on Average Joe's Gym's Home Projects. And please like and subscribe for future projects.